How much excitement can we have on one Shabbos Eve? There is no smoking in the bathrooms. Not that we think anyone, but just in case. No smoking in the bathrooms. Isn't that like a 1950 song? No smoking. Hang on.
We haven't done this in a while.
Test. Good enough.
Oh, it's a very resonant room. I don't think you'll have an issue.
Okay. Whenever you're ready. Page 358 in the prayer book. Very tough. From Psalm 27.
Shifti bevet Adonai kol mechayai lachazot benoam Adonai ulevaker beheichalo lachazot benoam Adonai ulevaker beheichalo.
One thing I ask of the eternal God, only that do I seek, to dwell in the house of the eternal all the days of my life, and to gaze upon God's beauty and to frequent God's temple. We are gathered here. Father Hannah, don't leave. I want to thank and acknowledge Our Lady of Lebanon and Father Dominicana, who is our partner and our friend, along with Bishop Gregory Mansour, who was in here just a little bit earlier as we were rehearsing for Ella's bat mitzvah. We are deeply grateful. We are wandering Jews in the truest sense of the word. Our home down the block is still under some construction for, God willing, only a few more months. And so some of us were accustomed, the last time I was worshiping with us, it was at the auditorium of St. Francis College, which now belongs to some mystery owner that we're still not sure who's acquired. And so we now find ourselves in this beautiful renovated space, the social hall of Our Lady of Lebanon, the Maronite Cathedral, here in Brooklyn Heights. Our friends, I was actually 25 years ago, this month, I think, I was installed as the rabbi of the Brooklyn Heights Synagogue in this very space, although the Brooklyn Public Library had not renovated it at that point. So we get to enjoy their renovation. And although I'm not sure we had anything to do with the fire panel going off, I'm going to do what I always do. I apologize anyway. We all on this block are familiar with 175-year-old buildings that attempt to have modern systems working in them, and sometimes that intersection between the 175-year-old building and the more modern technology, well, suffice to say, it's a little challenging. Christian is keeping us broadcasting on the live stream and the internet. And to those who are joining us on the internet, just a reminder, we are masked tonight, the second Friday and the second Saturday of the month. We have a service with masks in consideration of those members of the community who would like to join us but may be immunocompromised or in some other fashion. So if you don't have your mask on or you've misplaced it, I think we do have masks way in the back, and I'll ask that everyone make sure that they have a mask on at the service tonight. That's just really important for those who are attending on this particular Sabbath Eve. I'm going to be calling out page numbers which correspond with the PDF on the live stream broadcast. If it's not exactly what I've called out, I beg forgiveness. I think we're pretty close to what's on the PDF slides on the live stream. We are going to turn to pages 2 and 3, and I am going to call our bat mitzvah, Ella, up with her dad, Nils, and Aunt Emily, and we are going to, and with Penelope, her sister Penelope, and I'm going to invite everyone as we kindle Sabbath lights, the last work, creative work of the work week. Again, page 2. more things to do. We'll call you back up when we get there. Mazel tov. Ella's going to be leading Shacharit, the morning service, and the Torah service tomorrow. As, again, we wander around the community, we will be in Guild Hall, the social hall. We love social halls. The Guild Hall over at Grace Church, over at the corner of Jeralaman and Hicks. So we'll see you. The Havurah will be here tomorrow morning downstairs.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep all the locations straight. You can find them on the website. Tomorrow is also for Havurah, a masked service. We are at page 9 as we read responsively. There are days, too many, when we seek things for ourselves and we measure our failure by what we do not gain. Together? On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. And there are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat together, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. Jewish worship is a collection of centuries and millennia, starting off with the smallest affirmations of the presence of the divine, and only 500 years ago, recent time, the mystics in northern Israel added on what we know as Kabbalat Shabbat, the welcoming, the inviting of the Shabbat bride to join us. We're going to sing some of those psalms that recreate the days of creation, page 12, Lechuna Ranana, into page then 13, Yismechu Hashemayim. It's an open spread, 12 and 13.
Lechu nera nera, ay nay 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 nay, la Adonai, ay nay 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 nay, Nariya, ay nay 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 nay, Etzor Yishenu. Kadmafana betoda, betoda, bizmirod nariyalo, nariyalo.
You can do this. Ready?
Lechu nera nera, ay lay 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 lay, la
words of Psalm 95, come let us sing joyously to the eternal, raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Our worship is not a passive engagement and performance. It asks of us to bring some of what is within and share it with those around us. I know the masks get in the way. I know. Trust me, they get in the way for us too. But we're going to try our best in a very imperfect world, in a very imperfect setting. Nevertheless, we're going to try. So I want to urge you, figure out where your voice is tonight. And if the Hebrew's moving too quickly, you know what I always say, la, 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 right? It'll work just as well. We are at the bottom of page 13. It's actually the same page on the PDF. I think on the live stream, Yismechu Hashemayim, Psalm 96.
Yismechu Hashemayim, v'tagel tagel haaretz. ישמחו השמיים, ותגל, תגל הארץ, ירום הים אמנו, ירום הים אמנו, ירום הים אמנו, ירום הים אמנו, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל, תגל הארץ, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל, תגל הארץ.
So the mystics in the city of Tzfat rearranged psalms to recreate that pattern of the 6 active days of creation, 3 and 3 leading up to Shabbat. And right before we get to the Psalm 92, with which the Levites celebrated Shabbat, they inserted this beautiful poem that speaks of Shabbat not simply as sacred time, but the embodiment of sacred time, sacred personage, bride and queen, groom, king, whatever the metaphor, that sacred beloved friend who returns each week with a taste of what the world might yet be. The words of Lecha Dodi, pages 20 and 21, are custom verses 1, 2, 5. When we get to the 9th one, we're going to stand. We'll give you a cue. We'll face the exit or the entry door, depending on how you want to view it, and we're going to invite Shabbat to enter and join us. Lecha Dodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. la 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 la. Lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתחילה. la 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 la. lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי אם מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. la 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 la. lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה.
5th stanza.
התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באור קומי אורי, 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 שדברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. la 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 la. lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. lecha lecha dodi, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה.
And as you are able in body and or spirit, I invite you to arise, turn toward the entryway for the 9th stanza.
בואי ושלום עצרת פנה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך רימוני ים סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, la 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 la. lecha lecha דודי,
לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה.
לך לך דודי לקראת קלה פני פני שבת נקבל לה 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 לך דודי לקראת קלה פני פני שבת נקבל לך דודי לקראת קלה פני פני שבת If you're used to a different synagogue where they sit there, I like to keep people standing because then I can do this. I want to invite you to wish Shabbat Shalom to the person you're standing next to and who you arrived with. But then I want you to take a moment and introduce yourselves to people standing in front of you or behind you. Make a new acquaintance and wish Shabbat Shalom. Doesn't matter. That's the part there must be somewhere, but they jumbled it.
So, one of the things I say every week is this is why Moses had a hard time getting the Jewish people. It's a 12-day hike from the Suez to Beersheba. I know, I did it. It took 40 years, and there's a reason for that. It's because as a people, we like to kibitz. Have you ever noticed that kibbutz and kibbutz sound very right? So kibbutzing involves you got to stop, stay where you are. So we like to kibbutz. So we settle for a bit. I'm very conscious of the fact that wherever we are in this journey through the pandemic, the deep desire is when we come together is to connect. And there's deep value, of course, in the recitation of the traditional prayers, but there's deep value in how are you? I haven't seen you in so long. And that's as least a sacred an undertaking as the recitation of the prayers that remind us where we've come from and where we're going to. So the cantor and I were on a Zoom with Rabbi Crystal from Congregation Mount Sinai talking about food. That's another conversation, but that's the other component, of course, of Jewish life is we schmooze, we kibitz, we eat. There'll be more of that as we get closer to the holidays. We are going to celebrate Shabbat and its arrival now with the words of the Psalm for the Sabbath, Psalm 92, that's page 22.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב
asor va'alei navel alei gayon bechinor bechinor tov lehodot l'Adonai ולזמר לשמך עליון טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך במעשה ידיך ארנן טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון.
Once again, I will invite you, as you are able in body and or spirit, to arise. We're at the Reader's Kaddish, page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
אמן.
ועלמא דברי חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו
אמן. ישמר רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשו
בריחו
לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה
דמירן בעלמא וימרו
Amen. The call to worship, Baruch Hu, page 28, and I think east is that way. Pretty sure, right?
that way?
I'm pretty sure east is that way.
Ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 Ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la la la
Invite you to have a seat if you like. We join together in the English of the creation prayer at the top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. We join with the cantor in the singing of Ahavat Olam, page 32.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נהגה יומם בלילה יומם בלילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו
אוהב עמו ישראל
page 34
שמו ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Ella, come on up. Yeah.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ובדיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוקך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני
We are on page 39 at the top as we read together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, and that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. The words of passing through that sea, the words of Micha Mocha, page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה, נאמר, כיבד אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני,
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo.
גאל ישראל.
Page 42. We join together with the cantor in the singing of Hashkivenu, asking that God watch over us this night as we prepare for nighttime and laying down, that we be protected in our sleep as we lie unaware and we awaken to a world we hope that will be just slightly improved, slightly rested, a world where we can recognize just a little bit more potential for the good.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמע צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ברוך אתה אדוני הבורא סוכת שלום. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים ועל כל עמו ועל ירושלים שלום. ועל כל עמו ועל ירושלים שלום. ברוך אתה אדוני הבורא סוכת שלום. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל.
We live in a culture that celebrates the ability to go, to move, to make, to fashion, to do. Sometimes so much that we forget there is a virtue in knowing how and when to stop, to breathe, to pause, not just to breathe in, but to release and let out. Shabbat comes as that rhythm within the week that reminds us of the virtue, not of doing, but of being. The words of Vishamru, page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We are at Tefillah, the prayer service. I invite you again, as you are able in body and or spirit, to arise as we offer these prayers on behalf of community and envision the divine throne. Page 46, as we once again face toward the east.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezacher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula livnei bneihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah.
Page 50.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לו, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We are at page 55. I invite, for those whose custom it is to remain standing, please feel free to do so. For those whose custom it is to have a seat at this point, you're invited to do such. As we continue, page 55, we read at the top together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 57 together. Ever-present one. May we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shotecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. Page 59 together. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shemcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. And finally, the prayer for peace, Shalom Rav, the top of page 60.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
Amen.
We praise you, Eternal One, for you bless our people Israel and all peoples, we pray, with peace. I invite you to have a seat at this point. We are at silent prayer. I want to say a word about that. The traditional text that begins the journey of silent prayer is on page 62 in the Hebrew, and the translation just below. Page 63 are some modern settings. Historically and in modernity, we live with a tension about silence. So if you go over to the Society of Friends, the Quakers, they embrace silence and wait until the Spirit so moves them. In Jewish life, we welcome silence as well. There are long sections of the traditional service that are in fact recited silently. But the rabbis themselves were always nervous that perhaps amidst the silence people were getting, I don't know, they were worrying about the meter or the phone or the stove or the sink or the things that get on in your mind. So they ended up constantly scripting even when there was silent prayer. So you find yourself on pages 62 and 63, what's been scripted. I would encourage us to script our own words. Of course, silent prayer doesn't mean the world will be silent around us, especially in Brooklyn.
Tzuri וגואלי. עשה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו אמן. So we are blessed with many smachot, things to celebrate this evening. First and foremost, Shabbat, bat mitzvah of Ella Doler, and we also have a wonderful couple from the congregation who are getting married next week, and we are blessing them tonight in what's called an aufruf, not a roof, although we thought we should change it to that because it's fun, but an aufruf, a blessing in the sanctuary before your wedding. So I want to invite Wilder Kingsley and Rosalie O'Donnell to come up. O'Regan, wrong Rosie, O'Regan to come up and please be blessed. That's been in my head all week. It was bound to come out. It's very exciting. I'm very excited to marry you both. We've been talking for a whole year, I think, about this day. So I'm going to begin by blessing you, and then the rabbi is going to bestow the priestly blessing on both of you. מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב ואימותינו שרה רבקה רחל ולאה. May God who blessed the men and women of Israel in every generation bless this bride and groom. May God guide them on life's journey. May their marriage be a joy and a good example to all who know them. May they fashion a home worthy of praise, a secure refuge, where they find tranquility during all their days together. May the love of this couple inspire and bless their family, their friends, our community, and the community of Israel. Together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Kol sason v'kol simcha, a voice of joy and a voice of gladness. We rejoice with you on this Shabbat as you prepare to enter the chuppah, the wedding canopy. May you know much joy and gladness throughout your years together, the strength of spirit for times of sorrow and hardship. And we pray that your new home will be filled with delight, laughter, and unending devotion for each other. May you build a home based on ma'asim tovim, acts of goodness, and may you be blessed with happiness, love, and peace. And we say, Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, God, for this opportunity to celebrate together. Blessed are you, God, for all the joyful moments we share as a community and for the joy of this loving couple. And we say, Amen.
Amen.
Rabbi.
So, I got a chance to offer a few words a while ago as you celebrated your engagement, and it's really hard when someone was your bar mitzvah boy. You know, there's an adjustment. Even though it's a long time ago and he's been this tall for a long time, I'm still. Is it okay if I drape this over the two of you? Okay. So these are the words from the book of Numbers, what we call Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction. These most ancient words with which the religious leaders of ancient Israel would bless pilgrims as they entered into the sacred complex in Jerusalem. Yivarechechem Adonai v'yishmerechem. May God bless you and guard over you both. Ya'er Adonai panav elechem v'chunechem. May God's countenance shine upon you and be gracious to each of you. Yisa Adonai panav aleichem v'yasem lechem shalom. May God's presence enfold you, fulfill you, complete you as individuals and as a couple, bring you peace within and together, that beautiful harmony that we refer to as shalom. lucky sign for us, for all Israel, indeed for all the world. Mazel tov!
Thank you, Rabbi.
Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your simcha with us. You know, I don't know when our next Simcha Shabbat is. Hannah, when's our next Simcha Shabbat? Next week is Simcha Shabbat. So one of the things I say week after, or month after month, really, is that the reason we celebrate smachot, it's the proper plural of simchas. Simcha, smachot, but in America we say simchas, it's okay. The reason we do it is that, you know, the other stuff always, it's right there in the news and everything, but the celebration of the good too often doesn't get enough attention, and it has the potential to buoy our spirits. So, a few thoughts on this week's Torah portion. So 31 years ago, something like that, toward the beginning of my ordained rabbinic career, I was a young rabbi in Paradise Valley, Arizona, getting to know other rabbis, young assistant rabbis, and I had the pleasure of getting to know briefly my colleague in Phoenix, Rabbi Jeff Ablisser. And so, b'shem omro, we have this wonderful tradition to always acknowledge where you've learned something. So I want to thank and acknowledge my colleague, Rabbi Jeff Ablisser, on whose work this drash is built upon. This week's Torah portion, Kitei Tzei, Ella could tell you this, but come tomorrow. You're going to get to hear a lot. I'm not focusing on anything that you're focusing on. This week's Torah portion, Kitei Tzei, has the distinction of enumerating more of the traditional 613 mitzvot, commandments, than any other Torah portion does. There are 54 weekly Torah portions. This weekly Torah portion wins having more mitzvot enumerated than any other weekly portion. According to Maimonides, there are over 70 mitzvot, 70 mitzvot, derived from within this week's Torah portion. These mitzvot have tremendous breadth, and their span includes such disparate topics as, ready? The proper treatment of prisoners of war, disobedient children, fallen beasts of burden, brides accused of adultery, prostitution, foreigners, divorcees, widows, orphans, immigrants, the destitute, debtors, and animals, and many other issues. Compared to last week's Parsha, Shoftim, which dealt with the establishment of a king, it presented a series of checks and balances last week on the people who possess power in the biblical society. But this week's Torah portion seems to focus on the rights of those with very little power. Nachmanides, not Maimonides, but Nachmanides, Moses ben Nachman, the Spanish exegete, perhaps the most psychologically attuned of all the classical commentators on the Torah, suggests in a very extended commentary within this week's portion that the purpose of the mitzvot is primarily not for us to help God, not for us to serve God, not even our favorite, not for us to be partners with God, but rather the purpose of the mitzvot, Nachmanides argues, is to refine our souls. Following the words of the psalmist, Nachmanides employs the image of souls as spiritual silver that, easily tarnishes. The mitzvot then are crucibles through which we refine our souls, our silver. But what does refining something as insubstantial as a soul mean exactly? Well, in Greek and many Christian traditions, it is in fact the concrete world that is the source of spiritual tarnish. The soul, like silver, is pure, but the body is impure and, at the very least, corruptible. From this, one might infer that the path to spiritual purity should be monasticism or some other form of isolation from the physical world. much like Deb and I wrap her mom's sterling silver in those specially treated bags each year after their annual single use for the Passover Seder to protect them from tarnish. But Parshat Ki Teitzei makes the opposite assertion, that to be holy, we must in fact be positively engaged constantly in the welfare of our physical world and all that resides therein. It's as if the silver will stay more polished and gleaming if we would just keep it out and use it. To my mind, the essence of the refinement induced by the mitzvot in Ki Teitzei, particularly those that focus on the least powerful among us, can be summed up in three remarkable Hebrew words, a phrase really found in this week's portion, lo tuchal lehit alem. That's Deuteronomy 22, verse 3. Not what you're chanting from tomorrow, don't get worried. In its original setting in Deuteronomy, these words are addressed specifically to a person who finds lost property, property belonging to another. The Torah tells us that you cannot ignore someone else's misfortune. Now, while the new JPS translation renders these words as, you must not remain indifferent, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch in his 19th century German translation renders the phrase as, it shall not be in your power to hold yourself back. It's an aspirational but inspiring translation just the same. Imagine if we all just felt we could not hold ourselves back from doing the right thing. The early 20th century translation in the Hertz Chumash, that's one many of us grew up with in synagogues, follows the medieval commentator Rashi, translating the Hebrew literally, you may not hide yourself. You may not hide yourself. You see lost property, you may not hide yourself. Rashi comments, quote, you must not hide yourself by hiding your eyes, by averting your gaze, by pretending blindness that you do not see. That is, you can't just walk on by pretending that you're minding your own business. Someone else's lost property is your business. You have to get involved. You have to put yourself out. You have to put yourself in someone else's place to do whatever you can, in this case, to restore the lost property to its owner. Lo tuchal lehit alem, you must not remain indifferent. Even further back, onklos. Anyone here ever hear of onklos? You have no, right? So welcome to rabbinics. One. Ooh, I get a one. So onklos is one of the most ancient translations of the Torah from Hebrew into the lingua franca of our people 2,000 years ago, Aramaic. There are actually two translations. And in the Aramaic, the translation's even more emphatic. It translated from the Aramaic to English, you have no right to hide yourself. How about that? You have no right to hide yourself. And I'll offer my own interpretive riff. Quote, you must not hide from yourself, i.e., from what you know you're supposed to do. Can't duck. But the mitzvah of lo tuchal lehit alem also acknowledges the psychological reality of being a human being. And that is our impulse to get away from things. That, of course, is largely why people go on summer vacations, to get away from stuff. We are all exhausted at times by the noise in our lives, and we seek the refreshment of clear air in the mountains or by the shore. But even when we find ourselves in different surroundings, the Torah reminds us, don't be indifferent. Don't hide yourself. Don't hide from yourself. We were put on this planet to be engaged in the world, and we cannot permit ourselves to be indifferent any more than God can remain indifferent. And God knows that to get involved and try to help will be inconvenient. Sorry. I mean, imagine you are on vacation. What happens? Well, this lost straying ox from the Bible shows up. Oh my God, it's going to take up my time. It's going to take up space in my barn. It's going to eat my stuff, and it's going to cost me money. And then, you know what? After all, it's taken up my time and my vacation and my corn, and it's put a few dents in the doors of the barn. Guess what? The owner, I'm sure the owner's going to show up, going to claim the ox, take it, and go. So yes, the Torah tells us right now, all you want to do is don that cloak of invisibility, right? And disappear. It's not my problem. I don't see it. I'm not here. Just for a moment. I'm not going to do that forever until the ox wanders further down the road. It's someone else's problem. It's gone from my sight. That's the natural impulse that all of us have. And that's why the Torah uses that wonderful phrase, lo tuchal lehitalem, not just for wandering lost oxen, but for everything in the world around us that calls upon us, that tells us, don't hide from yourself. Don't hide from what you know you're supposed to, you should be doing. Don't make yourself invisible. You are right there in that place at that moment. Nowhere else. And that's where God is, because you're there. So this mitzvah is yours. Take it. Shabbat shalom. As always, I invite reactions, comments, critique. Wait till after Shabbat before you send the email, or it sits at the bottom of all the various AOL stuff. Okay, oh, there it is. We're going to offer our prayers on behalf of those in need of blessing and or healing. On this Sabbath Eve, we call to mind Lori Blum, Gloria Sancho, Jenny St. George, Chava Gittel bat Freda, Yona Chaya bat Miriam, Ruth bat Binyamin v'Chava, Steve Brown Inns, Yona Tevya ben Label v'Gita Henya, Renee Fishzone, Moshe ben Leah, Nancy Lazar, Delroy Aline, Max Estroff, Chaika bat Freda, Chaim, Kim Petchek, Peggy Einhorn, Bruce Nygren, Eleanor Shapiro Nygren, Bela Rivka, Bachmol Pesach Esther, Susan Sonkin, David Stephen Cohen, Andrea Feller, Peter Hort, Vlada Rusev, Nick Boyer, Eileen Dernfeld, Tom Walton, Chris Adam, Tim Weber, Jay Wertheimer, Ari Gilbert, Michelle Goldsmith, Richard Nicholson, Shani Sokolov, Donna Goldstein, Howard Shane, Bluma Fagel bat Chaya Zelda, Austin Merritt, John Klein, Yaakov ben Moshe Cohen, Gilbert Young. If there are other names that should be shared aloud before we offer our prayers for healing, either from the live stream or if you wish to share a name aloud as my hand comes along. Prayers for healing or just blessing? You'll find the words of Debbie Friedman, Alana Sholem, setting of the Mishbeirach, page 253. Christian, did we have any names from the Zoom? No. Okay, thank you.
Mishbeirach avotenu mekol bracha ne'imatenu. May the source of strength us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheber achim motenu, mekol haberachah ne'avotainu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Ken Yehi Ratzon. We offer prayers for our government and for the state of Israel, O guardian of life and liberty. May our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance, and may they govern with justice and compassion. Help us to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Page 259, we join together in the prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim, O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. And we say, Amen. We turn to our concluding prayers. Elenu, again, I invite you as you are able and desirous to arise in body and or spirit as we face east. Page 283, Elenu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
The words of Elenu originate in the affirmation of Malchuyot, sovereignty, as part of the Rosh Hashanah prayers. Long before it became part of every service, it was reserved for affirming the kingship of God. It seems to me an appropriate moment in between Elenu and Kaddish then to offer this special prayer that was composed by Rabbi Mervis, the chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, on the passing of Queen Elizabeth. Some of you may have copies, some may not. If you can share, that's great. Lord of the universe, the supreme King of kings in heaven and on earth, we, the members of this holy congregation, together with all the communities of the United Hebrew Congregations of the Commonwealth and of all of the English-speaking country, and indeed of all the world, deeply mourn the passing of the sovereign lady, Queen Elizabeth II, who has gone to her eternal rest. In an age of profound change, she signified order and justice, and in times of tension, she offered generosity of spirit. A defender of faith, with an unfailing sense of duty, she was steadfast guardian of liberty, a symbol of unity, and a champion of justice in all the lands of her dominion. Clothed in strength and dignity, she spoke with wisdom, and the law of kindness was on her tongue. She watched over the ways of her nation and never ate the bread of idleness. In life, she was a most gracious monarch who occupied a throne of distinction and honor. In death, may her legacy inspire the nations of the world to live together in righteousness and in peace. Yehi ratzon milfanecha shetamtzi lohod malchuta. May you grant Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II perfect rest forevermore under the protective cover of your divine wings. Menucha shlema l'olamim tachat haganat kanfei shchinatecha. And let us say, V'nomar, Amen. Our youngest son, Devin, our youngest son, Alex, is actually in London right now, and we're getting a little bit of a sense of what's happening. The country is sort of on pause until the plans, it looks as if her funeral will be scheduled for Sunday, the 19th. Much of the history of those of us who stand here today parallels the 70 years of her reign, worthwhile reflecting on a reign of, I would surmise and summarize as a good reign and if not perfect, an ideal monarch. 70 years of caring about England and the world beyond, and seems the world continues to shift from under our feet, and it's hard to know what remains. We hope that King Charles will continue in his mother's footsteps and wish blessings. I want to extend the condolences of the congregation now closer to home. I want to extend our sincere condolences to Mark Katz, Jen Zaslov, Elias, on the passing of Mark's dad, Dr. Joe Katz, just recently laid to rest. There will be another minyan at the end of Shabbat, Havdalah, over at 110 Livingston Street. And Mark, we're sorry for your loss, but we're also inspired by the stories you've been sharing about your dad, and that's always the blessing. Perhaps his passing and the Queen's passing go hand in hand for terrific role models of long and many years. Was? Yeah. In her own way, maybe. Depends on how you think about the palace. So I really do encourage, if you haven't seen that lovely tribute to Joe in the legacy.com, I would urge you to see what a life well lived and made looks like. We also, of course, extend condolences to Bill Coleman's family. Bill was a foundational member of our community, and passing also recently of Christine Eastis, mother of Vicky Eastis, Edith Silverman, the aunt of Jane Myers. Have I left out any recent passings within the community? We also call to mind the yard site, the anniversary of death that's observed. Bill Smith is recalled by the community. Stanley Newman, recalled by Ken Newman. Betty Marino, recalled by Betsy Moraes. Bette Bronstein, recalled by Larry Weinshell. Sylvia Kaplan, recalled by Sandy Schaap. Minnie Monshine, recalled by Fran Gottfried. Simon Sidney Semmel, recalled by our community. Linda Carr, recalled by Daniel Carr. Sheldon Albert, recalled by Kenneth Albert. Dorothy Meltzer Robbins, recalled by Jeremy Robbins. Julius Dernfeld, recalled by Eileen Dernfeld. Anne Baroy, recalled by the community. Jacqueline Linetsky, recalled by Mark Linetsky. Wilfred Birnbaum, recalled by Rachel Birnbaum. Nancy Brum, recalled by Nina Epstein. Nazim Gabay, recalled by Ed Gabay, Robin Slade and family. Annette Pollard, recalled by Gary Pollard. Harry Applebaum, recalled by Amy Applebaum. Louis Dernfeld, recalled by Eileen Dernfeld. Jay Schwartz, recalled by Matthew Schwartz. Julian Clark, recalled by Barbara Chardon. Lawrence Carlin, recalled by Neil Carlin. Elias David First, recalled by Michael First. Richard Rosen, recalled by Cecile Hanft. And Hetty Bernice Frank, recalled by Fred Kahn. If I've inadvertently mispronounced any of these names, or if I have failed to share aloud the name of a loved one for whom you are reciting Kaddish on this Shabbat Eve, I want to invite you to share those names aloud as my hand comes across the room. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. May their memories be for blessing. We sanctify them now with the words of the Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. We join together. Yitkadal, v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalmad divrach rutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon, v'yomechon, v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'galav v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpar, v'yitromam, v'yitnasei, v'yithadar, v'yitalev, v'yithalal, shemei d'kudsha bereichu, le'elamim kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlamma rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace on high cause peace to descend upon us, all Israel, our entire world, and let us all say, Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
V'imru amen. Please be seated, everyone. Miriam, do you want to do a few announcements, please?
Shabbat Shalom and welcome. Ella and your family, Mazel Tov. We know tomorrow you will be fabulous and welcome as you become a bat mitzvah. And to our bride and groom, Mazel Tov to you and your families. It's truly wonderful. I get teary-eyed just thinking of it. Chavurah tomorrow at 9:30. Laura Sapiro is going to be leading it. And because it's this time of the year, the high holidays are coming upon us. So if you have paid some money towards your dues or paid them in total, we say thank you, and you will get your tickets. If you haven't, please make arrangements and contact the office if there's a question. September 11th is coming, unfortunately, and there will be a observance at 7:15 p.m. out on the Heights Promenade, along with the other houses of worship in the neighborhood. And then Slichot starts on September 17th. We will join together with Congregation Mount Sinai at 8 p.m. at Grace Church, which is over on Hicks Street, sort of that away, which is, I think, where your bat mitzvah is tomorrow. So everybody should be familiar with that. Where after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we come right into Sukkot, and we will have sipping in the sukkah. It will be on Sunday, October 9th. Thursday, October 13th, and Sunday, October 16th. And anybody who is interested in either being a host in your sukkah or being a guest, please contact Marcia Bellows. The BHS Book Club is back on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 7:30. The book is The World That We Knew by Alice Hoffman. Men's group is meeting on Sunday, October 9th at 10:30. If you have questions, Jeff Gold is here, and you can catch him. He's in the front row. Thank you, Jeff. There's a whole bunch of family engagement, especially if you have young children. It's in the news and notes, as well as in a little announcement piece that's in the back as you leave, if you would like it. It will also give you updates on social justice and on our religious school, which is starting the week of September 18th. Thank you very much, Rabbi, Cantor, Miriam. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Our closing song is Adon Olam. And what melody did we decide?
Kingsley,
Kingsley.
in honor of Kingsley.
There
No
we go.
relation, no relation. Adon Olam Asher Mala B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Leit Nasa V'chesa HaKol Azai Melech Shemo
3:21.
Yikra Ve'acharei Kiflot HaKol Levado Yemloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Haveh Ve'hu Yeh B'tifara Ve'hu echad ve'en sheni le'amshir le'chachbira beli reshit beli tachlit ve'lo ha'oz ve'ha'misra ve'hu eili v'chai goli v'tzorchev li b'tzara ve'hu nisi amanos li menat kosi v'yom ekra בידו אפקיד רוחי ותישן והעירה ואם רוחי גבירתי אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Please join us at the back table. We are going to, along with Ella, make Kiddush. Shabbat Shalom.